All right, people, it is Friday night. You know what that means. Skeptic Help Bar is open.
Open.
Happy hours, because we're going to go too. Yeah.
It's a good Friday here.
Donna's here. She's off to the side, right?
I'm here.
There she is. It's been an awesome day. I've been off today. So we actually worked in the backyard. It was great. We had a table set up, and I had my laptop. She had her crafts. It was great. Beautiful day out.
Puppies enjoyed it.
The puppies enjoyed it. Let's see. We got Melissa, Tiffany, John, Jay, Gregory, Donna's in the house, Robert from YouTube, Diane. We got Lucas. Oh, yeah, Lucas. He helped me pronounce his name last time. Yeah, that's awesome. What else we got? Ron. What's up, Ron? Loving it. Okay, guys. So tonight, we have a guest tonight. And I'm excited to bring him on and talk to him. But we're going to go through the rules first. Because, we have to go through the rules.
Puppy power.
The puppy power. Nice. All right. Rule number 1 is you are welcome to ask questions.
Joe Downey.
And that's because, this is a learning show. That's what we do. We talk about topics. We interview guests.
Joe?
You ask questions. But because we have a guest tonight, we're going to stay with the standard format that we've employed this year and say the first hour, I'm going to talk with the guest. It's me and the guest. We're going to talk. We're going to chat. We're going to learn backstory and front story and side stories and all that kind of happy horse shit. And then second hour, after the pee break, we'll take all your questions. Rule number 2, piggybacking off of that, is that I don't know everything, and sometimes my guest doesn't know everything, so that's cool. That's all right. We're allowed to do that. What are you laughing at?
I'm just laughing at a comment.
I can't see the comments right now because I switched them over.
Good.
I switched over to my overlays here. But yeah, if we don't know something, we can figure it out for you. We can either look it up. If it's really quick and something interesting that we can do during the show, we'll look it up. If not, I have my trusty notepad, so I write it down and I will get back to you. Rule number 3 is that we follow the Patrick Swayze rule here, and that's be nice.
Yeah, he's on TV tonight.
Yeah, we were just watching.
Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing, yeah. But you can
watch that later.
Yeah, don't watch it now. But you can be in the chat room. You can talk, debate, discuss, disagree. That's cool. But just don't take it that step further and start name calling and bashing people. All right, because if you do that, Divine Donna over here will boot your ass out of the chat room.
Yeah, you don't want that. I don't want that either.
You'll never be back.
Yeah.
Never.
What the hell, Bob? You've never seen Dirty Dancing. Okay, Bob, leave the chat room. No, you can't now anyway because you already missed the first hour.
Oh, my goodness. Rule number 4 is if you have a question, please do us a favor, put a Q in front of it. That makes it easier for Donna to pick it out and save it for later. And then rule number 5, which is my favorite rule, drink up. That's right. So let me put my special guest. Oh, there's Donna's drink.
Just water tonight, guys.
It's vodka.
Yeah, I wish.
All right, so I have my special guest. I'm going to bring him on. Here we go. We have Steve Kulls, the SquachDetective.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
That's right.
Dang him.
That's right.
All these people out there should have seen Dirty Dancing.
How can Bob not have seen Dirty Dancing?
I don't know. He has no interest. Bob, it's a friggin' classic.
Bob, come on over tomorrow. Just come on over. We'll watch it. We'll get drunk and we'll watch Dirty Dancing. Okay. All right, Steve. It's good to see you, buddy.
Good seeing you.
So the first question for every guest is, what's your origin story for people that don't know who you are?
Well, let's see. My interest in the Bigfoot mystery began probably when I was just a wee lad, maybe about 6 or 7, when my father watched this documentary, so to speak, this docudrama off of something very new and unique called Home Box Office. And, used to have that little box with the cable attached to the
Oh,
little box under the TV and used to press the buttons to make it go to the channel.
Yes, we were the remote controls.
Yeah, you were.
Hey, Steve, go change that to channel 4.
I know you only had like what, 5 channels? It was like 3, 6, 10, 17, 29.
We got cable, so we had like 14 channels.
Oh, well, that was before my time then, or after my time.
Let's see. A lot of things I'll talk about is before everybody's time. But anyway, it started with watching The Legend of Boggy Creek, and that kind of just like, the opening scene is that little kid running through the field, and of course somebody like my age, and you hear the screams, and it scared the living Jesus out of me. And then I had a godfather who was reading stuff written by it was a pseudonym, Eric Bauman. I think it was a John Keel book called The Abominable Snowman. It was about the Yeti and stories behind that.
Okay.
So that kind of got me interested as a small child. And for some reason, I had a very advanced reading age. I was reading college level by the time I was in 6th grade. But then, of course, you get into middle school and high school, and you forget things like that. You focus more on vehicles and cars and women or girls, and more than you would anything like that, and sports and stuff like that. So forgot about it for many, many years until about 1996, 97. A friend of mine said, "Hey, did you happen to read this book?" And I thumbed through it, and I said, "I got to get myself a copy." It was called Monsters of the North Woods. And it was about Bigfoot sighting reports in my own backyard, basically, only a couple hours away here, an hour away there. So I'm like, no kidding. Now, my background, since I was actually 19, was that of an investigator. Throughout the years, I've worked for different private investigation companies. Now I'm a fully licensed private investigator on my own. I work for other companies investigating crimes. So I had all this, intuitive. I was trained as a forensic interviewer to sit down and talk to people, and using a psychological model, or models in my case, because I know a couple of different systems, you try to elicit a confession or an admission of what they did wrong or any wrongdoing. And what ended up happening is like, I bet you now I'm older. I'm a little more cynical. I'm a lot more cynical. And I bet you this is all bullshit. So I started talking to some of the, police officers because of my background. It turned out that I could talk very easily to law enforcement, that had witnessed these things. And, I was like, they're seeing something. And really the turning point is I talked to, and we actually tracked this guy down. We heard the story through his a friend whose girlfriend was related to these folks. And we tracked this guy down who had been living in this remote area in Rensselaer County. And there's been sightings in that general area within like a 10 to 15 mile radius before. So it had a history. And this guy had seen and heard something on his property. And he wasn't coming to us. We went to him. We somehow found his house by the descriptions we were given. We knock on the door, and the guy's like, at first reluctant, but then he opens up to us. The guy is a former, this is back in the early 90s. The guy was a former Marine who was in Vietnam, served 2 tours in Vietnam, was a truck driver, was an avid hunter, had lived on this property for 15 years. And he told us his story. And as he's telling the story, I'm trying to read his body language. I'm looking at the physical reactions from him. As he's telling the story, his jugular veins are starting to distend. He's starting to get short of breath. His hair is standing up on his arm as he's talking about it. So he saw something that he believed what, he's describing. And that's when I began to think that, hey, you know what? This guy's reaction is definitely, there's something maybe to this. So this we need to keep pressing forward. And that's really my story. And that was really when I started spinning up and doing a lot more over the years. I was with the BFRO for a while, and then I left.
What's
and
that?
Then the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization.
Okay.
And they were a great resource to get reports because it had a big website, big reporting, and people were going there and reporting stuff. So I was talking to a lot of people, and believe it or not, I know people will say that, 90% of the people are just, horse pucky and about, they're not, but the people that would actually meet you, and of course you look on there, the people that I actually met, most of them, I would probably say about 75 to 80% of them legitimately felt they had seen something.
Okay.
There was a few that were like, but that's because they take it to that last level of actually meeting you face to face. The phonies won't even go there. They'll tell you stuff in an email. They'll tell you stuff maybe over the phone, but they'll never meet you face to face. And usually when they drop off after you start questioning them a little harder, like, they're full of it. And mind you, my job, and I remember somebody saying, well, your job as an investigator is to prosecute people. No, that's a prosecutor. My job as an investigator is to obtain a picture of a story, to gather intelligence. Okay. That's my job. It's not even necessarily to gather evidence. Evidence is gathered by the forensics folks or by the evidence collection team. But even so, in this kind of thing, I've always looked at myself as a person who collects potential evidence and hands it off to the scientists and let them fetter it out to see what it is, rather than me saying, yep, it's Bigfoot. No.
Right. Yeah. It's basically you're collecting data and you're passing it off to someone that can analyze it and then determine whether it is evidence or not. So
right. It's a model. It's a model as an investigator. I just had to take that information, including the whole forensic interviewing model, and basically carve it up to fit, a paranormal or cryptozoological, type of investigation.
Right.
And it's very crucial that you paint the picture and you paint it correctly, and you take each case as a case by case basis. People have accused sometimes people, oh, you're just, if I believe something may actually be a Sasquatch, people say, oh, well, you just have confirmation bias. That's not true. I look at everything very skeptically. I try to sock it from every way before I come to that belief, because
that's good.
If it's not,
right,
then it's not. And that's when I started my website, I started with 5 tenets, and that's number 1 was keep an open mind. 2 was keeping an open mind doesn't mean throwing out the rule books. So in other words, just because I may believe, or I may have the belief that a Sasquatch could exist, doesn't mean that it can defy physics or the law of gravity or any of that stuff. You have to be real. Rule number 3 is always tell the truth, because regardless, everything is a case by case basis. So if this case doesn't fit that, fit a particular narrative, does it exist or doesn't it? Just because it doesn't fit either narrative, or it doesn't fit the Bigfoot narrative, doesn't mean we're going to hide it or, try to change it. We're going to say, hey, this is not a Bigfoot, and this is the reason why we believe it's not. And if, people can agree, that's fine. They disagree, that's fine too.
Right.
And number 4 was responsibility to educate, because, believe it or not, and, I've had talks with Ben Radford about this too,
fuck that guy.
Who's that, Radford?
Who's that, Radford? What a tool.
And I've actually talked to Joe Nickel too, which was kind of cool. I bumped into him.
I'm not going to say anything bad about him.
Wait, Ben's in the chat.
Ben is in the chat. Hey, Ben. The whole idea is when you educate the public, educate them with the truth, because people will say that, oh yeah, Ray Wallace, yeah, didn't he fake that film back in '60s? No, wrong thing. Doesn't matter if you believe the film is real or not. That's not the correct narrative to go with it. So if we're going to keep a story, let's keep it, truthful, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum of it.
Right. Right. You know what? Keep going. You got one more 10, right?
Right. Yep. And the one more, the 5th 10, final 10 minute is exposed to charlatans, exposing the junk science, exposing the hoaxers, because that's all part of education too. And, right. I get really aggravated. Oh, well, somebody, a Canadian researcher with the initials T, starting with T and ending in ODD.
I know that one.
People say, oh, well, hey, no, you got to know how he even started this. And he started so long ago, people even forget how he started with this like science fiction type of Blair Witch type of thing where, oh, there was these 4 hikers that went missing and they went into this little hole in a mountainside and it led into this valley called Sylvanic, which only the Native Americans or the first, what do they call it? The first Americans or something in Canada. It's only the natives, the native peoples knew. Well, that was funny because Sylvanic is a Latin term, not a Native American term to begin with. And just coincidentally, his mom's name is Sylvia. So, people forget all that. Right. And unfortunately, they forgive all that. Well, that was back then.
So. That's not an excuse. It isn't. I don't like, I hate that because you get that. And this is a sidebar here. When people say like, oh, well, they talk that way because that's how they grew up and bullshit like that. It's not an excuse. You gotta keep going with the times. You gotta learn. You gotta adapt. You can't just say, oh, well, we'll excuse it because that's what it was 20 years ago. No, bullshit. Yeah. But I do like how you're saying when you're talking about these cases and the people that have witnessed something, that you're actually saying they saw something. And you're not coming out and just saying, oh, they saw a Bigfoot, or obviously they saw a monster. You're going along pretty much with what I do and stuff that I learned from Ben Radford too. I don't want to pat him on the back. Oh
God, we don't want to make his head any bigger. It won't fit in the chat room.
But I mean, yeah, you can't just assume. And I like how you're not assuming. You're acknowledging that, yeah, they saw something. They had some kind of experience, but now it's time to investigate. Let's see what it was.
What it was. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how you're going by case, and because that's something I preach all the time. You can't just group everyone together. You can't do the stereotype thing where it's like every picture. No, every picture is not a ghost. Every picture is just a bush or a tree. It can't be Bigfoot. You have to look at each one case by case because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what's in that picture.
You don't know how many people will yell and say, oh, that's a blob squatch. Well, wait a minute. The guy said he saw it and he grabbed his camera and took a picture of it. And that's the best he could get. There's something different about that versus somebody just, oh, I was out taking pictures and look, there's Bigfoot. That's a blob squatch. That's your classic blob squatch.
Blob squatch. I love that. Describe that. What is that?
It's just people saying something is a Sasquatch that's just a big blur or a blob, or it could be Sask or what do we call it, the Squatch stump or the Sask stump.
Yes. Yeah. There was one a while back, and I thought it was like a more popular one, at least for a couple of days, where somebody was driving. I think they were driving by and they took a picture in the woods. And they got this dark spot. They were like, yeah, it's definitely a Bigfoot. It's just crouching down or squatting down. And it turned out somebody went there like 2 days later, and it turned out to be a tree. Yeah, it was just like a pine tree or an evergreen tree that was it was there. And that's what it looked like. So you have these 5 tenants. How did these develop? Like, I guess you started investigating Bigfoot claims and you slowly developed into these.
The way the 5 tenets developed is basically into a mission statement. This is what's going to keep us out of the chaff, basically, or out of the bad woods. Right. Is that if you stick to those tenets, you'll be honest, you'll be okay. At least you may not always be right. Nobody is ever 100% right. I'm not 100% right. I've been wrong before, and I will freely admit that. Yeah. And when I do, I correct it.
And that's the way to do it.
Yeah. That's what that's what you're supposed to do. So with those, it'll keep you out, or at least it'll keep you honest to say, hey, listen, this was our best effort. This is what happened. And this is why, if it fails, hey, this is the reason why. And we've reevaluated it. And from there, I set up investigation processes and interview processes and stuff like that, which, part of that whole formula is once they meet you face to face and you believe they've seen something, then you take it to that next step where, okay, now I'm going to go out in the field and I'm going to start poking around and looking and maybe hanging out there for a while, seeing if anything turns up or not. Instead of wasting my time.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to waste your time. Right. I mean, especially now, gas prices and shit like that. But no, you want to get out there and you want it to be worth it. You don't want to go out for a potential hoax or somebody just, having a prank.
Right.
You don't want to waste your time.
Exactly.
So on that note, over the years, let's before we get into the meaty stuff that I really want to get into, has there been a case that has really, quote unquote, stumped you, where maybe you've collected something that is potential hard evidence?
Well, there is a couple of, and they're in my archives on my website, a couple that have stumped me. And no matter what people may say, like the first one I ever got was the AK New York Bigfoot video. I call it the Pigeon video now, which was captured in Modena, New York back in 1997 on a home video of a bunch of drunk people standing around a fire. And, it was almost passed up by somebody else because he talked to the guy and he's like, oh, the guy sounded kind of, you see, this is the difference between, how I act and maybe some other people that aren't as well. They automatically blew it off because the guy sounded kind of goofy. Well, for God's sakes, he's from New Jersey. They talk a certain way. I know, I was born there. I wasn't raised there, but I was born there. So I said, well, did you ever see the film? Well, no. Well, how can you judge anything if you haven't seen the film he's talking about? So I said, do you mind if I take? So I ended up talking to the guy. I ended up talking to him for 2 hours on the phone. And how he says, well, yeah, and God, I love Doug here. Well, I was watching this and, this is 2002. We were going through our old videotapes and we put this one in and we were kind of laughing about it. And then my wife says, Doug, what is that? So he didn't even see it at first, but there was something swinging around in a tree in the background.
I remember this. I remember seeing this. Yeah.
So, okay. So I get into this whole thing about the whole setup of it. And, I've talked to the landowner who confirmed it. Yeah, there was no animals allowed on there. And we wouldn't even let a parrot in because we didn't have the insurance rating for it. Somebody got bit, it would be on us. So we so everything made sense. And the landowner didn't even know what was going on at that point because none of this was public. This is all behind the scenes. And so it's one of those things that, I investigated the whole thing frame by frame over a couple hundred hours, probably watching the movements of everything. And there was a larger, tall, dark object in the background as well that it seems to come off it. So can I explain what it is? No. People say, oh, well, maybe it's a monkey. Well, could be, but for a person, and to me, it made no common sense at all. And aside from Doug and his group, they were just bystanders. They didn't realize. And there was the one prevailing thought, well, it's a monkey. Well, yeah, but let's look at a couple of things. In New York State, you can't own a monkey. It's illegal to own a primate unless you're a zookeeper. And number one, you would have to sneak it into the property because they didn't allow animals. Number two was, it's dusk. Would you just let your monkey go up in the tree and hang out? You're never going to get it back. So it made no sense to me why that was there.
Can I show the video?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay with that? I got it queued up, I think. So just so people have
you might want to mute it if they're talking because hooey boy.
Okay. It is muted. So let me see here. All right. So there it is. Let me take off this brand for now. And we'll just we'll play it because I remember seeing this, but it's been a while. So here we go.
Now, see in the very first frame, you can actually see the head of the larger one move left to right, or right to left.
Oh, you mean like it's up here, right?
Well, that
something was moving up there.
Yeah, you'll see it. You'll see it actually swing between the trees, and then it drops down. Now, somebody tried to say, well, that's the antenna of an aerial antenna off the car. That made no sense to me. Number one, I had already covered that with Doug many years ago. And the other thing was the wind was only 3 miles an hour. So to have an antenna whipping around that much with no wind is because you don't see any leaves really blowing around there. And why would that antenna be, zipping around there?
Right.
And that doesn't explain the big one in the background either, which is very brief. And what happens is that it took me some time, and I use a process. Where you actually take it from the action source and work it backwards rather than trying to look it from forwards, because you're kind of looking at you don't know where it starts.
Okay.
So if you go to the back and you run it backwards, then you can start seeing where the back, the beginning is. And that's how I saw the big one. I go, there's something walking along the surface there. Prior to the other one going up and around. And that's the thing. If you look at it frame by frame, and these are some of the breakdowns. There's the big one.
Yeah.
And you see the jump. It looks like something jumps off its back.
Oh, I thought it looked like they
were
raised
waving.
their hand and waving.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me.
Watch.
There he is.
Whoop, up it goes. And that's the little one there, above it. Of course, it's so grainy and it's got the lines in it.
Right.
And then it goes off it. And then when it comes back up, you got to kind of find it. And these are the enhancements I did.
Wow. Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
That was something I could not, explain. It monkey doesn't belong there.
Right.
But when I went there many years later, because Finding Bigfoot had done, we did a show with Doug. They called me and asked if they can interview him. I said, sure. And they said, would you mind going out to the property? Because we now have access to the property. By the time I talked to the property owner, it was 2002. He didn't own the property anymore. And it was an ATV. So I never got to go to the property until I went with Finding Bigfoot. I think it was like 2011. And it was amazing because there was behind there was all old apple orchards. And I go out there and there's apple orchards and there's wild strawberries and wild raspberries and blueberries that had been some kind of fruit farm. And they're just still growing. So, so it's like, why would a Sasquatch be out there? Well, it's a good food source there. That's for sure. So it's something that nobody, you would ask the skeptical questions, but there was always a legit type of answer to come back to it.
Right.
So, and it's like the monkey thing just made no sense. And I did check for zoo escapes and lab escapes and stuff like that and bupkis. So,
but you're not saying that this is a Bigfoot. You're just saying this is what?
What I believe and what I can prove are two different things. Can't prove it's a Bigfoot. And that's what I'll say.
Okay.
If somebody asks my opinion, I'm leaning towards it. Can't say for 1,000%.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a shame it's such low quality. It's really bad quality.
It's 1997.
Yeah.
VHS-C, no less.
Oh, we were babies.
I still have that camera.
I was the first one. I was the first one to digitalize that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, the big one, I mean, honestly, it just looks like somebody waving to me. But that's just me, and I just watched it once or twice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm watching this thing frame by frame.
The other one just looks small. The other one just looks really small, and I have no idea what it is right now.
Yeah.
But cool. All right. So we're half hour in.
Where was that video taken?
Where was this taken?
Modena, New York. At the time, it was a private lake called Lembo Lake, and it was owned by a person by the name of Mike Lembo.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Let's get in to what's it called? The Georgia Bigfoot Body?
The Georgia Bigfoot hoax. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
See, I wasn't spoiling it yet, but it's cool. So what is this? What set us up? Set the story up for us.
Well, this thing started picking up some traction. One of the first tractionable things on YouTube back in 2008.
Oh.
We're talking almost 15. We're talking 14 years ago, just about. And it started like the beginning of July with these couple of guys, Rick Dyer, and a cop by the name of Matt Witten, saying that they had They were the best Bigfoot trackers in the world, and they were putting out all these videos. And finally, after about 2 or 3 weeks, they came out and said they had a dead one.
They had a body.
They had a body.
Wow. Okay.
So of course,
look at that look on his face. He's like, yeah.
All right. So it turns out I kind of challenged him to come on my old radio show, which was on the Blog Talk Radio days. Yes, I was broadcasting already in 2008. And they came on, and a lot of the stuff they saying was far-fetched, and it was stuff that I knew I was going to look into. But at a certain point, they began to question who was Tom Biscardi. Now, with people I didn't predicate was for about a year and a half previous to this, from approximately, I want to say June of 2006 through about April of 2008, I had been doing a subtle investigation into the Biscardi enterprise to the point where Biscardi actually subcontracted me as a forensic evidence collector. So I was traveling with his team, not necessarily him because he was rarely on any of the missions, but I was trying to evaluate, were they hoaxers? What was their game? What were they doing? And I can clearly say that the team itself was pretty honest about things, but when he showed up, there was a couple of things. There was always a guy on the team that was the press guy, and that was their vice president, Bob Schmalzbach, we would land in a town. We were talking to contacts there that supposedly had seen, had sighting reports, or there were researchers down there that contacted them and said, oh, we got all kinds of activity. And sometimes they would. Sometimes they would legit have some things going on that were very bizarre. But the vice president's job was to get on the horn and start touting, oh, the world famous Tom Biscardi's team is in town with, blah, 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 blah.
So let me cut in here. Sure. for people that don't know, who is Tom Biscardi?
Tom Biscardi is an alleged Bigfoot researcher, and there's a reason why I'm going to say alleged.
Don't worry about it. I use it all the time.
Yeah. Well, you'll understand even better why I say alleged when he claims he's the world-renowned Tom Biscardi, the godfather of Bigfoot. Yeah. And he started off with being a protege of Ivan Marks, who in his own right started off as allegedly a legitimate researcher, hanging out with people like Renee DeHinden and Roger Patterson and all those folks. And then all of a sudden in 1971, after Patterson got the Patterson-Gimlin film, he starts touting his own films, trying to sell us to Peter Byrne for $25,000. And it was very clear that it was somebody in a stupid cop job costume that made Bigfoot look like it had like these friggin' elf ears. So really horrible. That kind of outed him as a hoaxer, and he decided he wanted to do his documentary, and that's how he got hooked up with Biscardi, as they were doing the documentary together. And so then Biscardi disappeared for a while, emerged in the early 2000s. And then in 2005, he went on Coast to Coast and said, after doing this investigation in Happy Camp, California, which is where he met Bob Schmalzbach, the vice president, they put up all these webcams to live stream for a subscription price in Happy Camp. He gets on and then shocks the world on Coast to Coast, saying that, well, I got this woman who says, she's got a body, she's got a live Bigfoot captured in Stagecoach, Nevada. And and we got scientists looking at it, and yada 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 yada. So and the whole thing fell apart within like 48 hours.
How long? So he starts the subscription process, the subscription service, and then announces like how long afterwards? Oh, we have a person with a body.
That I am not entirely sure.
Okay,
that I'm not sure. I wasn't really involved in the national scene then. I didn't start really on the national scene until January 1, 2006.
Okay.
So I was still local New York and doing all. So I wasn't really paying much attention to any of that. until I got national and I heard about this, which was actually in 2000. Since it happened in 2005, it was all rather recent.
Okay.
So, and then he got embroiled at the end of 2005 with Dallas Gilbert and Wayne Burton, where he had kind of got them to say something that was wrong, and they got called out and accused of being hoaxers when actually it was Biscardi who planted the whole idea in their head. Which we will learn Tom does. Okay. So fast forward now I kind of infiltrate the thing for through 2006, or I'm sorry, 2008. I think the last time I was out was in March, actually, not April, but it was like March, the end of March. I said, that's it, I'm done. And the reason why I was done was because we had gone to Bishopville, South Carolina, when Dixie Rawson had allegedly had this dog man attack, or not lizard man attack on the vehicle, which happened back in the 80s. Same thing happened back in the 80s. So, of course, Biscardi honed in on it because it was getting a lot of press. So I get there, and, the first thing people were accusing the Rawsons of was that, they're hoaxing it. They probably made tool marks, and all the pictures were showing the top of the bumper. Well, I got there, and the first thing I do is I look under the bumper, and I go, oh, no, that's a bite, all right. That's a very good bite, because you can see where the mandible came in on the top of the bumper, but you can see the not mandible, the maxilla bites on the top, and then the mandible bites on the underside of the.
Okay.
I said, but I'll tell you straight up, those are canine bites. They're all round.
Okay.
And I said, and I'm looking around and I see that the Rawsons have about 24 cats, and they don't have a cat house, the little cat things, people. They don't have one of those. They have like a freaking condominium on the side of their house, like, and there's cats all over the place, right?
Ugh.
You could.
I am not a cat person at all. I hate cats. I am allergic to them. They want to kill me, so they're all evil as far as I'm concerned.
If I may be so bold to say, is that when I got there was pussy everywhere. But anyway, sorry, I had to do it.
And that's the first for this show. That's the first time that was put on there.
That's funny.
So anyway, I look around and I go, you know what? And there was some blood on the car, but the sheriff's department had already taken blood samples, so I knew that was out for DNA because the current sheriff was there when we got there. So I said, you know what? Open up the car hood. So they open up the hood, and I look in the header where the bolts go down into the header screws. And, so there's little recesses.
Yeah.
And in there was cat hair. I'm like,
okay.
That's the reason why the dog was going after the car, because they're probably chasing the cat get up under there, and it was going after the cat pretty aggressively. That's probably what happened. And sure enough, the DNA test came back as blood from a canine.
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
So so I was 100% right. But while we were there, Biscardi gets on the news and, oh, what you ain't got here is a lizard, man. You got a primate. And I'm going,
oh.
And I said, you know what? That's it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Because that, was it a lie? I don't think he cared. He didn't care what I had to say. He didn't care. He just wanted to make a name for himself so he could pitch his group and pitch his movies and pitch whatever.
Okay.
But there's another reason behind that too. But we'll get into that towards the very end.
Okay.
So I have Dyer, and then there's a point on the show which we realized that Dyer is actually the ringleader, not the cop. We thought the cop may have been Witten was the ringleader, but actually it was Dyer who was the ringleader of the pair.
And Rick Dyer, this is the guy that thinks he's a Bigfoot, like a legendary Bigfoot hunter kind of thing.
Yeah, he still does. He still plays that game occasionally.
Okay.
So anyway, so we get to the point where towards the end of the show, he asks, "Who's Tom Biscardi?" So I said, "I know this guy," because the guy knew who Lauren Coleman was. He knew who Meldrum was. He damn well knew who Tom Biscardi was. He was researching everybody. He knew all the ins and outs. And you damn well knew when he went on my show, he was researching what I've been doing.
Okay.
So what I found out was that actually he had left a message on Biscardi's machine, but Biscardi never got back to him. So next thing you know, well, you know what? I'll talk to Tom, whatever. So I talked to Biscardi, and he's like, well, let's see if their story's real. So I'll work on this side. I'll work on dealing with this detail. You go ahead and work on that deal, on this detail. So I ended up making a few phone calls about the attorney he said he had. Attorney had no idea who he was. Rick Dyer, that is.
Rick Dyer. Okay.
Yeah. So I knew that. Okay. So
you guys are now researching,
working together. Yeah, we're researching the story
from Rick Dyer, right?
From Rick Dyer.
Okay.
I called Biscardi. Biscardi told me, yeah, I talked to the National Enquirer, who said they offered X amount of dollars. Or rather, Dyer said the Enquirer offered him X amount of dollars, and he talked to the Enquirer. Enquirer doesn't have any idea what he's talking about either. He goes, you know what? I'm going to call these guys up, and I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. And that was the last I heard of it until about 3 days later when I heard, I really think these guys got it. I'm meeting them, blah, 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 blah. So I'm sitting back, okay, well, wait and see approach, because the guy's lying, And meanwhile, everybody's asking me, well, what do you think? What do you think? I said, take a wait and see approach. So I'm not going to, he's got something going on. Let's
this is all about wait and see if they actually have a body, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So, I'm trying to, the exact dates I know. All I know is on the first day, Biscardi flew down there. It was, I think it was, 8/8, August 8th. He flies down there to meet with the guys. Supposedly he was going to get some pictures, all this other stuff. I mean, I have my dates. I would have to pull up my book and start looking. But he goes down there one day, and the next morning he calls me up like at 5 a.m. He goes, I got the guys here. I want to write these contracts. Can you help me out? Because all my guys on the West Coast are sleeping.
What contracts?
Well, that's what I want to know. He goes, I think, he thinks they got I need to write. So, all right, yeah. I'm half asleep typing this thing out, what he wants written. I email it to him. Turns out those weren't the contracts he even used, or those weren't even the papers he even used, because they remained unsigned. The ones that were signed were actually written by his attorney out in California. So I found that quite fascinating too, because he always tried to play up, well, Kulls wrote the contracts. No, I didn't. I wrote a version of the contract, but then you had your attorney do the final one. So don't hand me that.
What were the contracts for? Like this for money for
it was
rights,
rights and percent for a percentage and a fee to obtain the body itself, so he can do whatever he wants with it. Basically.
Oh, so the contract was for getting the body.
Right.
For maybe testing and display purposes and
correct.
Like
promotion.
Okay. Promotion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Promotion, basically.
Okay.
So it gets to a point where now everybody's getting teased. Then he says, I'm going down to he flies down another day. I'm going down to get the pictures, and we're going to take a DNA sample.
Okay.
And then we see the release of the pictures on the web of the thing with Biscardi and the two guys standing there. And Biscardi didn't want me. They were going to pick it up on a Thursday, and they were going to take it to Indiana to an investor's house who had fronted the $50,000 to give to them for this transfer.
So that the $50,000 was for the body.
Well, it's for, yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
For the use of the body, basically.
For use of the body. Okay.
It was like a forward. That's what they wanted. We wanted $50,000.
Okay.
Or they wanted $50,000.
$50,000.
$50,000. 50. That's why my book. That's why my book is named 50 Large.
I mean, shit. Yeah. If you got a Bigfoot body, you're gonna make more than $50,000. I guarantee it. If you have a legitimate, authentic Bigfoot body, you're gonna be rich.
And the thing is, Kenny, you don't know how close they came. And I'll explain why.
Please.
So the team, he sends the team out from San Francisco to pick the body up in Georgia. They pick the body up, and I'm trying to paraphrase this so we kind of, for time, a bit. So they picked the body up. It was supposed to be thawed, and it wasn't. It was still frozen in a block of ice. So you have these guys lifting this 124 cubic gallon freezer filled with ice, or filled a solid block of ice, into this trailer. And they take the trailer to Eaton, Indiana. What they didn't count on was that Biscardi said, well, I don't have the money to pay you to come out there. Because I was like, hey, I want to come out. I want to come out. And I said, you know what? Give me the address. I'll come out on my own. And I did. That's the one thing he wasn't counting on. So I get there. I fly out to Indianapolis at the time the press conference was going on. Now, Biscardi on...
So they're holding a press conference.
They're holding a press conference. That was Friday. That was Bigfoot Black Friday, if you've ever heard that.
I love it. Bigfoot Black Friday.
And we're talking about Bigfoot on Good Friday.
It's on Good Friday. What a coinkydink.
It's a full moon tonight.
It sure is. So I'm in the air and they're having this press conference. Now, earlier in the week, Biscardi had sent an email to me and several others saying that the DNA tests had come back describing the thing as having mixtures of human/ape. That's not what they said at the press conference. They said it was human/opossum. So he sends this email. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't hear the DNA results. I'm just like, whatever. You know, human ape doesn't sound correct to me because that would be, sounds too generic.
Human possum really sounds freakish to me. Like what kind of government conspiracy black ops mutation experiment are you working on?
So at the press conference, apparently what they had said was, well, we feel that it's possible that since we took the DNA sample from the stomach area, we probably had eaten a possum.
Oh man!
Oh wow!
So somehow we went through we got right into the stomach contents. So wait! I thought this was in a block of ice.
Well, it's thawed by now.
Well, it was thawed when they took.
Oh, it's thawed now. Okay.
Well, no, it was thawed when they took the sample.
Oh, and then they put it in they froze it.
And they froze it.
Okay.
So nothing they said there really made a lot of sense, but. So I get down to I land in Indianapolis. It was like 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern. And then it was another hour drive through Muncie into Eaton. And I said, so is the thing thawed out yet? And his son, TJ, who's a pretty straight shooter, actually, was like, nope. I thought it was supposed to be thawed when you got it. Yep. So that night, TJ and I were sitting up. And, the thing is outside and people are walking around with guns because, they're all worried that someone's going to try. It's only him. But anyway, it's Indiana. Remember Dillinger hid out there. So we start listening to Coast to Coast with George Norrie and he had this guy on. And they were talking about the thing, and you want to talk about friggin', like crazy, but kind of cool at the same time. Here they are talking on Coast to Coast about the body. And I'm sitting right next to the trailer it's in. I was like, wow, this is actually pretty wild. but then the guy was saying that he had on that. Well, I recognize that. That's my costume. It's been altered a little bit, but that's my costume. And I remember TJ and I just looking at each other and we gave ourselves that. So, you know what? We all go to bed and it might have been about 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning when daylight just first came in. I feel a tug at my shirt. I'm sleeping in a chair and I wake up and it's TJ and his eyes are wide open. And he's like, let's go see if this effing thing is real.
That would be so me.
Right? And I'm like, yeah. So we all go in there and we're beating the shit out of the ice. And finally, I go, look, there's a hair. He goes, he grabs it, pulls it out, hands it to me, goes, see if it's real. So I take the hair, put it down. I get a magnifying glass and I look under it and I'm going, hang on a second. Let me get a flashlight. And I put the flashlight on it and you can see it's just a synthetic plastic hair.
Oh.
It's tubular. You can see right through it, almost like it's
right.
So then I said, well, and by that time Schmalzbach had gotten up And then we looked at it, and see, none of the team was in on it, not even Schmalzback. And we all look at it, and Schmalzback and I at the same time said, "Let's burn it." Yeah. So that'll tell there's hair in it.
Oh yeah.
So we burn it, and the whole thing just crawls right up into a ball. That's plastic.
Plastic.
Boom.
Yeah.
So we know it's fake. So Biscardi's like, well, we want to heat this trailer up, melt the frosty ice. We got a couple of salamander heaters. We want to put them in the trailer. We'll close the hatch, heat the sucker up, and we'll. So we did that, and we heated the thing so horribly hot that the insulation in the freezer started to melt out the bottom of it.
OMG.
But anyway, we ended up getting a rubber foot out of it. And at that point, okay, we turn around and I'm like, So we tell Biscardi. Biscardi didn't go off the handle like his normal personality would when he gets mad. He was like, okay. Now, let me backtrace. There was a couple of things that we were kind of concerned about, before this thing had been defrosted, like during the week. I go, what scientists you got coming? Well, I'm still working on that, but I have a film crew. Oh, you're going to like this. He goes, it's the same film crew that did the documentary on the alien autopsy. They're coming out, right? Okay. So Biscardi was really cool and calm about it. Well, I'll go talk to them. The next day, Biscardi throws this idea out there. Now it's Sunday. And Biscardi throws this idea out there. He goes, here's what I want to do. And I need all of you to agree with this. Right? He goes, we're just going to tell the press that the public pressure got too great for Rick and Matt. So they took the body back and they went back to Georgia with the body. We don't know where they went. And we're all going to sign NDAs and not talk about this.
Bullshit.
Right? So he goes, Bob, what do you think? He goes, well, you're the boss. And TJ, well, whatever you think, Pop. Brian, well, like Bob said, you're the boss. Steve, let me think about this for 1 fucking second. Mm-hmm. And I walked away. So they got off the phone. That was the last time. In fact, I remember the conversation preceding that. Well, this is what we're going to do. And I don't need anybody. Listen, there's money to be made by all of us here. And I don't want anybody going cowboy on us. And I knew that was meant. So I said, I walk out. And they come out. What's the matter, Steve? And I'm in the process of launching a long chair about 30 feet. And I turned around and I glared at them. I'm not fucking covering up a hoax with another fucking hoax. Okay, man. Yeah, no, nobody's arguing that fact with you. So they called Tom back. And I heard this conversation because they put him on speaker. Steve doesn't want to do that. He disagrees. We should explode it. All right, whatever. Click. That was the last time I ever heard Tom Biscardi on the phone again, because then after that, I was persona non grata.
Did you get shit for it then?
Huh?
You got a lot of shit for not going along with it?
Oh, no, not at all. The guys, the guys on the team were not involved in this mystery. They didn't know the end game. I found out, and I'll explain the end game in a minute. But what ended up happening is I eventually get out of that camp because I had to do a podcast, and I said, well, I would say if this thing is real or not. On Monday, I get on and I said, hey, listen, it's not real. I had 31,000 live listeners. I was like, what? I said, it's not real. Then somebody says, well, what do you think? Is Tom Biscardi involved? Well, I'm an investigator. So at that point in time, I didn't know about the email discrepancy. And I said, I don't think so, but I don't have any evidence right now to say that he is part of it. Boom. That's when I got condemned, because the Bigfoot community wants that instant gratification. They don't care about the rules of evidence and how a true investigation works. So it doesn't work on everybody's want timelines. It works on evidence, and investigations need time and pragmatism. So I got back, and mind you, I've been kicked out like out of 4 or 5 organizations because I didn't condemn Biscardi. They eventually apologized for all that over the years.
That's good.
Which is fine. It was just a blood reaction. People wanted blood, and they wanted Biscardi's blood because he was really the villain before, and he got himself into this, and he put it on the world stage, and now they wanted his blood even more than Rick Dyer's at that time. So what I did is eventually I kept, I just kept things quiet, started working things in back channels. And it got to the point where Rick Dyer had gone on a show in December and said that I was part of it.
Wow, you got thrown under the bus.
So I call him up. I go, how was part? Well, hang on. I call up. So I said, Rick, listen, spirit of Christmas. It's around Christmas time. Let's just talk. Let's just talk this out. So I go, Rick, how was I part of this? And this was really the only time Rick was actually being honest at this time for a while. He goes, well, why didn't you ever talk to me after that? I said, well, because Biscardi told me not to. Because he was dealing with it and you guys were paranoid. And he just starts laughing. He goes, that son of a bitch. He goes, listen, I'm not going to, and Rick was like, listen, I'm not going to make any bones about this. He goes, we were told not to talk to you because you wanted your own deal or whatever. See, he's just working, trying to keep the angles. The angles. And I explained to him, I said, the team didn't know what the hell was going on and whatever. So he broke down the entire story, how Biscardi knew this thing wasn't. And I said, what is the motive? Well, before the motive, I don't want to kick the motive right now, but I kind of hinted at it a little bit. But anyway, I end up in February meeting Rick Dyer down in Georgia. He takes me to all the spots where the contracts were signed, where they picked it up because it actually matched the video they had of them picking the body up. He took me to the store where they bought the freezer and said, I don't have the receipt, but, I'll see if I can get a copy. So I went and he goes, come on. He took me every step of the way. He goes, I was here in August last year. I bought a freezer. Can I get a copy of that receipt? And the girl's like, yeah, sure. Boom, pulls out the freezer receipt, turns around, takes it, hands it right to me. There's the freezer receipt. The evening Biscardi flew in
is when he got the freezer.
So you damn well knew that there was no way Tom Biscardi could ever make the excuse that he had just been boondoggled himself by it was frozen when I got there.
Couldn't have been.
Couldn't have been. It was 124 cubic
feet of yeah. You're not gonna no. Not
in 12 hours or even. And then and the funny thing is that in the picture you see all these ice cubes in it with the kind of head sticking out. So even in the picture, right? The funny thing is that's how they tried freezing it at first. Put some water in, put in tons of ice. It didn't work. So it was Biscardi's idea to freeze it in layers. And when we had actually defrosted it, we saw no signs of ice cubes at all. So that thing had been frozen in layers.
Wow.
So anyway, the whole motive behind it was he knew eventually the team was going to find out it wasn't real. And the reason why he wanted to spring the NDA was because he was having that Fox crew come out and film Bigfoot autopsy and then make the big money with that little back bullshit story and then make his $1 million or $2 million on the film. And that would be that.
Wow.
That was the backstory behind it. And I remember Matt Witten, who was very quiet about the whole thing. I mean, we're talking 5 years later when, he finally got his life straightened out. He talked to me a little bit and Matt was like, he goes, Matt Witten really felt bad about the whole thing. He goes, I never realized how it would hurt people until I started looking at it. There was people who believed this and there's people who allegedly witnessed this and, they're hurt, it hurt their feelings by doing this. And I feel really bad. I thought this was going to be a ha-ha and it wasn't. He goes, that's not who I am. And that's not what I'm about. I go, yeah, but what was the biggest mistake out of the whole thing? And he kind of chuckled. He goes, Biscardi letting you down there because we lost all that money because you're
because you figured it out and exposed it. That's great.
But what I've learned in my investigation of the Biscardi group was, and it was funny, up until 2008, 2009, I had pretty strong evidence because what people didn't realize is that every time I asked, hey, Bob, the vice president, can I borrow your flash drive? I'd like to, get some of your pictures that you took that I didn't get a chance to see. I would also take their investor spreadsheets. And what those investor spreadsheets showed that there was a Ponzi scheme going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. And their CFO, David Nilsson, was a big time mogul guy, real estate guy who had a company called Cedar Mortgage. And in 2009, late 2009, early 2010, he was indicted on 31 federal charges, which related to a Ponzi scheme he was running. And that was searching for Bigfoot CFO at the time. So he ended up having to resign. Wall Street Journal reporter there had confirmed to me that, yes, Cedar Mortgage did send money to searching for Bigfoot.
Oh.
So now the interesting thing, too, is that where does most of the money searching for Bigfoot come from? And it's not for conducting research. It's not even for their movies. Most of their money comes from investors looking to invest in museums he's putting up. Since 2006.
Wow.
2006. I know from 2006 to 2008, he raised about $410,000 for museums. Here we are,
2020,
16 years later, not one museum has ever gone up.
Oh, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to go up.
So you see what I'm saying? It was never about Bigfoot research. It was about the dollar, and it was about creating this appearance to be a Bigfoot researcher. But really what you're doing is you're suckering people. Look at us on the news. Look at us here. Look at us there. They were showpieces to set people up for suckers for these Bigfoot museums.
This was like a scam on a scam on a scam all around just to make some money.
Absolutely. 100%.
You know, like I've heard about the Rick Dyer thing, and you know, and he did it like one or two more times where he tried to pass off a body or say he's got a body.
Dyer, yeah, but you know, Dyer stuff. You know, Dyer thinks he's the high. Dyer thought he was the high roller, and finally, you know, it was probably about 6 months ago. He was on a show, saying something again, and I got him completely back down off it again and apologized to me after the show about it. And actually apologized to the Bigfoot community after the show because he realizes, because I explained something he didn't really think of. And he says, nobody's ever explained it to me. And he goes, I feel bad now. But, I explained to him the final nitty gritty that, you may think you're the biggest Bigfoot hoaxer around, but he's really the biggest Bigfoot hoaxer. He didn't need a body. He didn't need nothing. He just needed to say he was doing research. And that's all he needed,
I didn't know how deep that story went, and I'm glad we got to get into it because there was a lot there. There was many layers. This is
there's a few more, but they just convolute things. It's right. Just a reader. So,
all right, let's we're gonna take our pee break because it's that time. We're an hour in, a little bit over an hour in. So this is the time, people. The second hour is your hour. So after we come back from the break, we're going to take your questions. So this is the time.
Put them out there because I don't have any.
So put them, go pee, go refill your drink, and then come back and post some questions. Remember, put a Q in front of it first for Donna to pick them out. And then once we get back in about 3 minutes, we will take your questions and go from there. All right. So with that, I'm going to play our commercial, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes from now.
Do satanic cults lurk in the shadows? Can memories of satanic ritual abuse be repressed? Do exorcisms really drive out demons? And are those demons always possessing Zach Baggins? I'm JD Sword, the Satanic Skeptic. Join me on The Devil in the Details as I examine these questions and more, bringing a skeptical and satanic perspective to the paranormal. The Devil in the Details, available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and more.
Shedham for us. Shedham for us. Hail Satan. Hail
Satan. Are you tortured by what you see and hear about the paranormal field? Join us as we critically examine and question paranormal claims, science, ghosts, demons, cryptids, UFOs, ghost hunting technology, and much more are all on the table for discussion. 3 Tortured Souls is a video podcast that streams live on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 Pacific.
All right. Woo. Always feels good, man. that hour break or that hour in break. Release and refill.
Oh, I didn't need to release. I just needed to refill.
All right. What are you drinking?
Bourbon, honey bourbon.
Honey bourbon. Oh, I like that. That's nice. That's nice. I got some Kraken
whiskey.
Oh, I got that. I showed you. I sent you the picture earlier.
Yeah.
I had that maple bourbon.
Maple bourbon, so good.
Rum flavored maple bourbon.
Rum, yeah. What
rum flavored maple bourbon?
Mm-hmm.
It was. Oh my god, it's so fucking good. It is. Maple bourbon butter pecan.
Yeah.
That stuff I can just drink out of the bottle like all day long. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, some days I put the cubes in it. Some days I drink it straight. Some days
you know. Depends on how you're feeling. And today was just a nice day out. I don't know how it is where you are, but I was. It was beautiful today.
Most of the day was gorgeous. Yeah. Weather's been. It's like wow, winter went like where'd it go? It's gone. Usually, like in New York, I'm used to snow through like, even like through the 22nd. It's kind of like sketchy.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
whereabouts in New York? Like
I live about 6 miles west of Saratoga, New York. So I'm way upstate. I live maybe 160 miles from Montreal.
Okay.
So I'm up there. I'm above maybe 25 miles north of Albany.
Albany. Okay. All right. All right. So we got a couple questions here. Again, if you have questions for Steve about Bigfoot, it doesn't have to be what we talked about tonight. Along the lines of Bigfoot, because he does investigate Bigfoot cases. So if you have questions, put them in the chat room. But what do we got here? We got, just curious, do you believe Bigfoot exists for Steve?
Well, considering I've had 2 of my own sightings over the years, it took me. First sighting I had was in 2011. Second sighting I had was in 2012. So yeah, it took me a long time to see one, and then I saw another one the year after, and nothing since.
Nothing.
So I do believe they exist.
Wow.
So, yeah,
and that's kind of cool. I mean, it's not cool. Not the where I'm going. It's cool for me, but it's probably not cool for you because I'm sure you would like to have more sightings. But it's cool that you're like, yeah, I've only had 2 sightings in all these years, and you're not trying to embellish. You're not trying to overestimate.
And they were very. A couple of them were. One was fairly quick. The second one was fairly quick. It was a juvenile. And the first one was maybe, and people ask me, well, how long was it? I don't know. Because, I was just getting some batteries to put in my headlamp, and I stuck them in my pocket and pulled out my cigs and figured, I'm going to have a smoke while, We were all in camp. We were doing an expedition, and I kind of walked out by myself. It was a fall evening, October. So I lean up against my car and I pull out my flashlight and I put it down the north side of the where a lot of the activity prior to that was going on, down the dirt road, and then I shine it over uphill to the south, and standing next to the utility pole was it looking at me, because the eyes reflected and I could see the silhouette of it.
Okay.
And it blinked. It was blinking. But the first thing it did, actually, it kind of just turned a little bit and looked, and then looked back at me. And I don't know how long it was, but I just froze. And I'm like, I know if I move, it's going to go. And then after a while, I said, I'll just shake my light a little bit, see what it does. And it turned and it walked into the woods. I call out, one of I had like 2 or 3 4-man teams. And I called out Team A, and they came out and actually had a videographer with me. And so he caught me, the first time. My eyes were a little squinty. But when I was talking, my eyes were like, yeah, it was standing right there. My eyes were like that. And I was just like, you could tell I'm like talking like this, and it was right there. So then we were trying to get some measurements, and the guys start looking around, and they find where it had stepped into the woods. And because you could see the scuff, and there was dirt still falling into it where it had kind of stepped in and over. And then the camp was noticing that, hey, we got a lot of sounds going to the south of the camp. And when it was, whatever it was, I say it was a Sasquatch. That's what I saw. Well, it was walking onto the south side of the camp around going to the west, which didn't surprise me because the area I concentrate on is to the west of that area. So it made sense. And it also made sense to me, too, that, it's October, the leaves had fallen. And we have a big fire going, and we're all talking and eating and quarterly because we had been out for a few hours. And now we're talking about, did you hear anything? What was going on? And they're making some laughs, and, everybody get, the jokes are flying as usual. If people know me, it's the tradition. And it was just simply standing there, curiosity, just watching us. From a safe distance, through the trees, it could see us through the fire. I mean, there was no problem being able to see. The following year was even more bizarre because I just got out of a tent. I had to use a tree. It was 1:30 in the morning, and I got to use a tree. I unzipped my tent. It had been raining horrendously. It was very overcast, but there still was a full moon, which kind of gave the whole thing kind of like a nightlight thing. All the clouds were very light colored, and you could see some ambient light because of the moon out, even though it had been cloudy. And I step out, and then running between that dirt road and the campsite, there's a 5.5-foot one. And I saw that one clearly with long reddish type of brown hair just going. And my first reaction to that was like, no, I couldn't have seen that. So I used a tree and went back in. I didn't make any ruckus. I just went back. I said, no, I couldn't have seen like this.
Let me ask you.
I was exhausted at that point, but yeah.
How did you determine it was like 5.5 feet tall? I mean, that's kind of.
I know that area very well.
Okay.
So I'm very good. One of the things I do is my career, 34 years, I watch a lot of video of people. So I'm very good at judging height, even on a video camera, from knowing certain, like out in the open, people are like, how the hell you do that? Because I'll walk to somebody, you're 6'3", and like, yeah, you're 6'1", yeah. But it's just something I've accumulated over the year from arresting a lot of people over the year, I suppose. Bring them in, asking them their height and stuff like that, and after a while, it all just accumulates. That you see somebody, that guy's about 6'1", that guy's about. I mean, yeah, it looked like about 5.5 feet. Could have been 5'2", could have been 5'6", sure.
Okay.
But yeah, it was. I was taller than it. That was for sure. So, I go 5'9.5". So.
Okay. Next, how do you know that what you saw was not a bear walking on its hind legs? They do that more than people realize. Because
I clearly saw the legs. I clearly saw the legs, and it was booking it. I mean, it wasn't like a bear just going. It was like. a full run, like a sprinter almost.
Wow. That's a big stride.
I don't know if it's a stride, but it was running. It just shot. I got out of the tent and I startled it. And
was there any like physical?
And I know when a bear startles, it doesn't run away on its hind legs. It goes down the fours and goes.
Okay. Was there any kind of physical evidence left behind, like hair or footprints?
They did find a 9-inch track a day later.
Okay.
Melissa Hovey and her husband, Wayne Larson, found it. And that was surprising to me, because all of a sudden, hey, whoa. And then there was some other weird stuff that went on too. Like that morning, I didn't say nothing to anybody. I got woken up the next morning, said, hey, something left a birch log behind my vehicle.
Is that code?
Mm-hmm.
No, but the interesting thing is, but since it's been raining, birch burns very well.
I thought I'm sorry. I thought it was code for like poop.
Oh, poop. No.
It left a log.
It left a birch log behind one of the vehicles, and the guy had been there 11 because he was keeping his blanket and his pillow in the Jeep. And what he did was he goes, hey, I'm keeping my pillow and blanket in the Jeep just in case my tent leaks. I'm not, because it's been raining. And so last minute he goes, okay, I checked my tent good. We were all going to bed about 11. He goes in, opens up his Jeep, grabs that. The next morning he goes to put it back, and here's this log, this birch log. Now the interesting thing about it, and this is what freaks me out, was that during the day we had been collecting birch logs because they burn wet.
Okay.
Because of the oils in the bark. It doesn't matter. You get some heat and kindling under them. The for whatever reason that oil in the bark, it goes up like gasoline. So we collected a lot of birch bark and a lot of birch logs, and there was a birch log just strangely sitting there. So it kind of makes you go, what the hell was watching us during the day collecting all this wood?
Cool.
It was really weird.
Jade Kitten. Hey, Jade Kitten, how you doing? Were you scared? I think I'd be scared.
No, because if you look at, and one of the things one of my favorite things to do about this mystery is look at behavior. I want to know what, and that's just part of me, I guess, because, with the forensic interviewing thing, it's a lot of it's based on, you're interviewing somebody and you're trying to find their behavior that caused them to do that. Once you find that behavior, you can capitalize on that. And that's how you get an admission. Hey, listen, I know sometimes people get medical bills or you get behind the rent or your mortgage, or your car payments, and, it's tough to get by on the wages you earn. So I understand that, and I'm not saying that if you did do something, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. The only, my only judge of a person is if they're just being truthful to me. And that's how they go. So I wouldn't want to think you took money for a greedy reason, right? Okay, I thought. Was it for one of the reasons I said earlier? What's going on? Well, I'm behind in my rent and blah, blah. And that's how you get these admissions. But so behavior is always an interesting thing. So what I've learned in my research is that primates of one species rarely, and I do say rarely, not never, rarely attack primates of another species. This was very consistent in species of macaques they studied, where one macaque species would let another macaque species pass through their territory without, they may chatter and get mad and make, basically
puff up their chest and stuff like
puff
that.
Up their chest, display.
Yeah.
They'll display. But if the macaques of the same species come into the territory, then it's all out war, which always leads me to say we've had wars. We've never had wars against gorillas or chimpanzees, but we've had plenty of wars amongst Homo sapiens amongst themselves. So that's just one example. There are exceptions. Number one, it is a creature of the wild, so that could be. So when you ask me, was I worried? No, not really. I had enough distance the first time anyway. The second time it was going the other way, but the first time there was enough distance between me and it. I was not a threat to it, so I had no fear that it was going to come after me. Plus, I had my car right there, so I think that put me maybe tactically at an advantage, like it would be to any animal.
Okay.
So I wasn't really.
All right, cool. John without an H. What's up, buddy? What's an investigative tip you can give to people who live to solve paranormal mysteries?
Universally, there's things I always look at. A real witness looks for validation, not for fame. That's number one. Number two, I suppose, if you tell a person, listen, the answers to my questions may sound invasive, but that's only to bolster your case. Regardless of what's in your past, honesty will bring it out. And if they get offended or start getting angry about questions or re-questioning of different areas or the same areas over, that's suspect. I'll give you a good example. Back in 2006, there was a gentleman who had posted a video to a laser forum, and he happened to be from Katoomba, Australia. So here is this case where I'm reaching out to a guy from Australia, and he's very forthcoming with his story. And I found that the second time he told me, there was a little bit of a deviation. He said that, I go, well, you could hear other people in there. I go, well, who? Well, there was my friend and my other friend who was a nurse and yada, yada, yada. I go, was your wife with you? Oh, she was with her other friend and they were preparing dinner. A later story came out to be, well, she was with her friend, but they were getting dinner. There's a big difference between preparing dinner and going out and getting Indian takeout, which is what the story had evolved to.
Now I'm hungry.
The other thing which really sealed it up, I said, well, is it possible to talk to any other people there? Oh, yeah, sure. And after about a week, I go, hey, can I get the email addresses of those people that were with you? Well, what is this, some kind of inquisition? You're guilty. You're guilty.
It's an investigation, bitch.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Very good.
So that, be very careful, people not willing to give you the entire story.
That's usually, like across the board. Bigfoot, cryptids, UFO, aliens.
Exactly, yeah.
When people had that story, there's always a story element where they're like, well, we had photographers check and scientists check and stuff like that. And then most of the crowd will be like, ooh, that sounds legit, until that one jackass says, what scientist? What professional? Can we have a name? Name, number, email. Can we have a contact information so we can verify it?
And then everything
the
falls
story
apart.
Goes flat. Yeah.
And then my third piece of advice too is beware of people who get more detailed as time goes along. Most of the details will come out first, and that's how they caught. Remember that woman back? I want to say, oh God, I don't know how long ago now it was. Probably the early 2000s. Susan Smith, who claimed her car was carjacked with her 2 kids in it.
Yes.
And that's how they got her, because every time they talked to her, she got more and more details about the carjacker. Well, he was wearing this. Oh yes, by the way, he was doing this. And oh yeah, so they realized that, every time they talk, these details should be right there, right off the chute, and they're not.
Right.
That's because they're trying to evolve their story. And you also have to look for stories that psychologically make sense. And I had a great conversation with Ben about the Bigfoot peeper case. And if you put the pictures aside, I love the people who, I call them the flybuyers. They just, look at the picture, but look at the story. Yeah, but the picture, you got to look at the story.
Everything. Yeah.
A picture is only as good as the story behind it. That's the bottom line. And this guy claims that, while I was sitting there in my chair, and I have this, and I always keep my video camera next to me. Of course, who doesn't? So all of a sudden this thing looks in the window. Oh my God, it's a Bigfoot. So I grab the video cam and I'm videotaping it for about 8 minutes. And then my wife walks in and she screams. She screams and runs into the other room and calls the sheriff's department. Never says what sheriff's department, right? So I put my camera down and I grab my gun. Well, why did you put your camera down now and grab your gun after 8 minutes?
Yeah. Why? Did it suddenly start attacking? Like what's the point of
wait, your wife's home? You didn't say, hey, honey, don't go outside. There's a Bigfoot on the porch. No, you don't say that.
Well, it depends on the relationship, because you might want to say, hey, you know what? Can you go outside and get me something?
Yeah, true.
Fuck you, Biddle.
So the story, but then it gets better. It gets better. Yeah. So, these are the pictures. I'm sorry the video was destroyed in a fire at my mom's house.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was like, would anybody believe that story? No. Nobody in their right mind would. But yet they see the pictures and go, oh, it's real.
Wow.
Now, that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts. Completely nuts.
Yeah.
All
right. So. What else we got? That was good. John without an H. Part 2. John Guy. What's up, buddy? I have had it on sketchy authority that Bigfoot is an extraterrestrial. Can you confirm? Well, I did. You know what? I'll take this first. I did see the episode of the $6 Million Man, and I can confirm that Bigfoot is a alien android scout for the aliens. So that's the story that I have. That's the story I grew up with. So therefore,
you're sticking to it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing, but I could make a dozen jokes off of that question, but I think I've come up with probably the best dispute of that, where people say that Sasquatch is an alien, and that is, well, do you think for 1 second that if we went to a planet just like Earth, that we could breathe their air and be able to function without any kind of breathing apparatus? Do you think we would go there naked? No, we would go there with breathing apparatus because we're not immune to their microbes. We're not immune to their bacteria. It's all new to us. So therefore, we can't breathe in this bacteria normally because it may cause something that cannot be cured and kill us. And it could be instantaneous. It may not be the oxygen. It may not be the atmospheric makeup. It could be the biological. Think of H.G. Wells and War of the Worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind. Yeah.
The other thing is do you think they would bring the aliens would come here naked, or maybe even jump into a wormhole here naked, with the amount of parasitic insects and things we have in this world, such as chiggers and mosquitoes and leeches and God knows what else? No, we wouldn't. They would be wearing some kind of protective garment on them to protect them from the environment. So, a Bigfoot being extraterrestrial
with anything you just said,
it makes no sense. But that is the most convincing argument I make to the people that are firm believers that Bigfoot's an alien.
That's awesome. I mean, depending on the movie that you're based off your aliens, I mean, I wouldn't mind some of them showing up naked. I mean, it'd be all right. But yeah, you got a point. And I actually never thought about it that way. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Awesome. Good questions, guys. Lucas, what do people think Bigfoot is? Do they think it's a Gigantopithecus?
Gigantopithecus.
Gigantopithecus. Or some other giant bipedal ape? How does something so big hide itself so well? Have you heard of the Bigfoot sound? Heard the Bigfoot sound? Sounds like a samurai or something. Samurai.
Well, there's
a couple questions here.
Leave that up. Yeah. What do people think Bigfoot is? Well, they believe people believe all kinds of things. Some people believe it's a shapeshifter, cloaker, alien. I believe it's a primate. Where it comes from, I'm not entirely sure. I can, and I always say that if it exists, it would be a primate, because think about what a primate is: articulate hands and feet, small snout, large brain, forward-facing eyes, which are used for predatory, for long vision and predatory function. So that in itself describes what a primate is. Now, whether it's a remnant of a Gigantopithecus or an evolution of such, or Australopithecus or Paranthropus, or where it comes off the tree of primates, whether it be the hominid or pongid, or maybe something of its own, I don't know. But I can say with certain comfort that it's a primate. How does something so big hide itself? You can't think in that kind of context, because I live in upstate New York. I've been to Vermont God knows how many times. And I have moose crossing signs. I got to see a moose, and they're pretty damn big. But the bottom line is too, you also got to remember that you're not dealing with a normal animal. If this exists, it's a primate. So it has some forward thinking. It has some strategy ability. And it has forethought to go, this is probably not where I want to go because of that. So that's probably a good reason why they hide themselves very well. And I think that they like to avoid, other apex predators such as ourselves. Have I heard a Bigfoot sound? I can't say with certainty. I've heard some howls, but I've never heard the samurai chatter. There's some people that claim they have, but the only recorded instance of that has been the Sierra sounds. And, the only thing I got to say is I'm on the fence about that because it's only been recorded once and I've never heard it repeated again by somebody else. So.
And I like your reasoning with the idea of it hiding. Because when we're talking about animals, or primates, animals, whatever, it's not. I almost want to say that the hiding thing is more of a human trait, where they're just avoiding.
It's a primate thing.
Yeah,
it's a primate thing.
It's pretty much like, it's not like playing hide and seek. It's saying, well, there's a large population. I don't want to go there because that's not my territory. That's possible confrontation. I don't want to go there. I'm okay here.
Or if they do hide, it's because they don't want to be seen by, said, just like we would do. I don't think, it's no, animals do hide. I think it's the seek part that we all have a problem with, but, animals do hide. They will hide. You see a raccoon, it goes up a tree, so they hide. The animals are very good at hiding, but when you have a larger capacity brain, such as a primate brain, you can take that one step even better. That's why I kind of laugh at the how to hunt guy there up in Canada. Oh, I know it. He knows everything about Bigfoot. Only been around 2 years, and this kind of animal. And listen, dude, you're talking like it's a deer or a bear or a wolf. No, it's not. It's something completely different. Nobody here has ever hunted a primate, so take that off the shelf because they don't think like other animals do.
All right. So next question, Redman. But we can prove a moose exists. We have proof of primates, but after many years of finding Bigfoot, nothing.
I wouldn't say necessarily nothing. Nothing that science has necessarily said that accumulates to proof. You got to look at it, a couple of ways. If you come across, you're walking in the woods and you find what appears to be a moose track, is it a moose?
Are you asking me specifically?
Anybody? Hypothetically.
Like you're waiting. I'm like, oh shit! I think he's asking me.
Would you think it's a moose? And most people would say, well, yeah.
Well, if I'm
why you didn't see the moose make that track, did you? No.
I think. Well, I can counter that by saying we do have moose examples. We do have carcasses. We can we can match it up. The problem is with Bigfoot, we don't have an actual Bigfoot.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
Can't match it up. So when someone says I have a Bigfoot track, that's an assumption, not a fact.
But was it an assumption when they found the first panda track? Was it an assumption when they found the first gorilla track? These are
not assumptions because these are mysteries. I think there's a difference here.
Well, I don't, because it took 76 years to find the panda.
So yeah, they didn't know what it was. They're not assuming that it's a panda because they didn't know what a panda was.
Right,
but when
they probably called it something else back then. That's what I'm getting at. Is that
I don't know.
Yeah, you see, my guess is just because we call it a Bigfoot now, doesn't mean that if it is discovered that we're going to call it a Bigfoot. We're probably going to say that's what we used to call it, a Bigfoot, but it's actually this
because it has big feet.
The voice from Don.
And you know what big feet mean, right?
Oh my god!
Yep.
Here we go.
Big shoes.
I think I understand what the point is, though. But I mean, we might discover something along the way. I think there's a difference here. There's a difference between
the only difference is.
Well, wait a minute. So the difference here is that when, let's take the panda print. Mm-hmm. Panda print was found. I don't know much about this. I can't go into detail. This is just speculation on my part.
Well, example For example, people saw the panda. People saw the tracks. They saw signs of the panda, but they didn't actually have a body in existence. It took them 76 years to get one. And it was actually a woman biologist that ended up getting it.
So when they did get it and they matched it up, they said, all right, these tracks are specifically for that.
That's the point we're at now is we have people that have seen them. We have people that have found legitimate tracks, I believe. I know I've found a couple of legitimate tracks. I found a legitimate track, and somebody else a year and a half later found the same individual a mile away, same track, same foot, same toe anomaly, same callus on the foot, same heel toe, same heel width, different toe splay.
So I think that's where we're going to disagree, because you can't say it's a legitimate track of a Bigfoot because we don't have that comparison.
I didn't say legitimate track of a Bigfoot. I said a legitimate track.
A legitimate track of what?
A track.
Okay,
so we don't know what animal.
I'm sorry, that's where I was going.
So it's the same with the panda. They found the track of a panda,
but they didn't know.
They found a track, and it's a legitimate track.
Right.
I think that's what I'm getting at. What we're doing is, see, we each have our own biases in it, so we have to realize outside that bias. That's what I'm trying to get people to realize that. Well, that's not. How do you know those are tracks? Well, how did they know the panda tracks were panda tracks back in the day? How did they know the mountain gorilla tracks were actually from a mountain gorilla? They didn't. They didn't until they discovered it.
There's the difference, though. There's the difference right there. Like they didn't know what it was until they found the actual creature.
So why should we put any less of an emphasis on it because we haven't discovered it yet?
Because it's labeled as a Bigfoot track by some people, not everyone.
Right. But if you look at the scientists,
that I can't argue.
I mean,
I agree with that.
That's what we're naming it right now because we haven't seen it.
But I'm not
haven't
sold
found one.
On the idea, and I like this. I like this conversation.
Yeah. I think we're on the same wavelength. I think sometimes the minutia of the labeling gets a little mixed up, but we should not. If a track is found, and if you listen to Krantz and Bindernagel, especially Bindernagel, the way he talked about it, Bindernagel was a phenomenal orator and a communicator of how things, and what we're looking at is something that, hey, this is a print. We need to explain where it comes from, right?
I'm with you so far.
The skeptic, not saying all skeptics. There's a difference. You're a skeptic. There are skeptics. And what happens is sometimes because people are on the same kind of wavelength a bit, they don't believe in it and you guys are very skeptical of it. You kind of converge a little bit and you say, well, that's not evidence, but it's not evidence that an animal exists, but it's evidence in a lesser way. It's kind of like, here's a crime scene and a window gets broken. There's no prints on the window. There's no evidentiary value, but it's still a broken window. Did a crime occur? Well, we don't know if a crime occurred until we get in and actually see what crime did occur. If a crime did at all, did the wind break? Was it a natural break? Was something stolen inside? So you have to this is how my mind works on it. So now, people may better understand, right?
Where's the broken glass? Inside or outside?
Inside or outside? Yes. But does that, even if it's on the inside, does it make it, or inside, does it make it a crime? Did something fall on it? Did somebody accidentally knock on it? Right. You don't know until you actually. So right now it's a piece of evidence, but it's nothing conclusive.
I wouldn't even say it's evidence. It's data.
It's evidence of a way. Yeah. It's a physical. It's there.
It's data. It's data you're collecting. Okay. And you have to look at the whole picture before you determine whether it's evidence.
So a print is still evidence because you have to look at it this way. Did a Bigfoot make it? What we think a Bigfoot is? Is it a double bear step? Is it somebody messing around? Is it, just maybe something fell there and is not there any longer? So, but it's still a piece of evidence. It's not, evidence isn't always something to prove something. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. This is evidence. It doesn't prove anything, but it's still evidence. It still goes in the collection bucket, and us as researchers should look at it and understand it.
Okay.
Because
that's where I see. I refer to that as more data than evidence yet, because evidence by definition is in support of something.
Not necessarily. Evidence can also be something to debunk something as well.
Yeah, it's in support of this claim being false. That's what I mean. It's in support of something. If you just have regular data or any kind of data,
but it's still listen. If you find a rock inside the glass, or a branch inside the broken window, that's evidence. But we still don't know, is it in support that somebody actually threw it, or did the wind blow it into it?
See, at that stage, to me, that's data. And further data determines whether it's evidence.
From an investigatory point, that's evidence, because an evidence builds a case.
All right. So
see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
I looked up the definition.
There's a divergence between scientific evidence and investigative evidence.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I mean, let me read you the definition. So I just typed in define evidence. And this says the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. That's how I view evidence. So if you have something that is just a broken window. What am I, like New Yorker now?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Broken window. That's not evidence of anything until you look at other pieces and bring the story together. And then it could be evidence of something.
Well, that's exactly. But that's exactly what we're doing. You see, right now, I mean, it's minutia. You call it data, we call it evidence, or people call it evidence. I call it evidence because that gets put in an evidence bag, or it's labeled as evidence to build a case at a later time.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
You see what I'm saying? Eventually, it's going to come back into play. The thing is right now, you don't know where it comes into.
It could be put in that evidence bag, and then later on, it could be either refuted or said, "All right, this is confirmed," and keep going. So, okay, all right. My producer is pushing us on to the next question.
No, John Michael is making a statement.
I think he may be coming from a judicial perspective, where evidence means something slightly different from the scientific term. Okay, I think you've gone without an H. All right, let's go. We got a bunch of questions now. Shit. Do you believe in the cloaking theory coming around? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I did. I did.
No, next.
Moving on.
Cloaking theory.
No.
Are they Romulans, Klingons? What is going on here?
Does anybody know what that means?
Cloaking?
Is there a
like
thing?
A story that they cloak?
Yes.
Oh, so there is some.
Oh my God.
Honestly?
I did a blog many years ago. There was this guy talking around with, he's saying, "Oh, look at all the cloaked Bigfoot here and cloaked Bigfoot." He was just taking pictures of the woods. So I created. No lie.
I'm going to take a picture of my backyard and be like, "Look at all the cloaked Bigfoot."
Oh, yeah, red circles around nothing. But the beautiful thing is, I do this blog many years ago. And like, oh yeah, Bigfoot can cloak. Here's me and my buddy, my big hairy friend Harry. That's got a picture of me, my arm around nothing. I don't believe in a cloaking Bigfoot.
Wow. Okay. Next question.
All right.
Let's try to get through some of these. Let's say, do you believe aliens have a presence on Earth? If not, how do you dismiss millions of alien sightings while maintaining Bigfoot sightings are authentic? Ooh, he brought that back around. I like that.
I say that. Yeah.
Interesting. Nice one, guy.
Do I believe aliens have a presence on Earth? I
mean,
I do.
The documentary, they're here.
Strange. I do. I do believe there's a lot of weird things out there that we can't explain just yet. The government's coming out about AEPs, and they've or UAPs or whatever they're calling them now, the new term. They have for years denied it, and now they're admitting it. That should say something.
Well, to be fair, the report that was released was not anything it was
Right.
more of a bid for more money. That's what it was. It didn't confirm or deny anything.
The guy who was in charge of that whole thing, clearly believes there was something to the whole thing. And, I don't know. I've actually met years ago, many years ago, because he was speaking at one of the bigger engineering colleges, RPI up here, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which actually had a tie into the Unabomb case years ago. I talked to, I didn't talk to, but I heard him talk, Jesse Marcel Jr., who was the son of and his story was very compelling to me. I talked to Kevin Randall, him I talked to personally, who's written several books on the Roswell stuff, and very compelling stuff that, and Kecksburg has a little bit of an interesting flair to it too. So do I think aliens have a presence? Obviously, I'm talking out of my league and more as an enthusiast than I am this is more opinion than fact-based.
Okay.
But as an investigator, I'm looking at a lot of stories that ring a lot of similarities to it. So yeah, do I believe aliens have a presence? It's a very good possibility. I would dare say yes, but who knows? There's a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of things our government doesn't tell us about. There's a lot of things that people don't talk about either. So who knows? I could clearly say it's possible.
Okay.
I'm not a guy who I am not a skeptic by any means on anything. I've investigated. Yes, I have investigated UFOs before. I've heard some stories from people that I find very interesting, but they weren't anything, they were quite boring, actually. Oh, yeah, there was a light. Have I seen things in the sky? Well, I can tell you, I was in Vermont on a Bigfoot expedition in the daytime, and we're setting up cameras while a few of the guys and girls went up the hill to take a hike. And when they came back, like, did you see that? And me and Frank, the old guy that I was with, we were setting up the cameras. We saw this light in the sky, just kind of hovering around, and then and this is pre-drone days. This is when drones weren't very commonplace. And this thing wasn't making any noise, and it was quite bright, and it was a sunny day, and there was a light in the sky, and it just went, and then just kind of disappeared off the thing. Didn't go at any incredible speeds, but it did make some kind of, different weird type of things, and then off. And then about an hour and a half later, it came back for about 5 minutes after we watched it for about 20 minutes the first time, and then it just disappeared again, just gone. So yeah, it could be paranormal stuff. I've played with the paranormal too, and that's a whole nother world. It's very interesting. Do I believe in the paranormal? Well, I believe there's something to it, but I'm not quite sure what. But I do know that television, like the cryptid mysteries, has kind of cheapened it a little bit. So
yeah, I think a lot of the reality shows have cheapened a lot of the hobbies. All right, moving on. Trying to get through so many. We got a lot of questions, dude. Tiffany Larson, what's up, Tiff? I wonder why so many people are afraid of Bigfoot, but so many people share experiences seem to be benign, and the Bigfoot leaves. Why are people afraid?
Psychological. Think about it. You think about the boogeyman, or you're thinking of the hairy, big. It's bigger than us. It's hairy. It's it's mysterious. It's it can scare people. Boogies. And let's face it. You see some, for most people, if it's not in your belief system, and all of a sudden there it is, like, what the hell am I seeing? That's what
anything like that. I mean, it's shit. If I was out camping and I turn around and there's a bear, I'd freak the fuck out.
Kenny, he would freak out.
I would freak out, and I don't know what I would do. I would either try to hug it.
Donna, go get that for me.
Like, Donna, there's a bear.
There's a bear.
I got it. Just
Donna
go
would come
lay
out
down.
with the bear spray. All right, we're good. Go away.
Go back to bed.
But imagine if something is not in your belief system, and there it is. And that's tip number 4 of tonight for identifying hoaxes. You see a video of a couple walking around with their child, like, oh, look, there's Bigfoot, and they're all going, oh, look at the Bigfoot. No, the psychological response would be, get behind me, protect the child. That would be the natural psychological.
Right. I mean, that would be. I can say from sitting in this chair, if that scenario played out, the first thing I would do, yes, is get get everyone to safety. Yep. You need to be protected here. Take this. If something comes, just pull the trigger. But as soon as they're safe, yes, I would turn around and be like, I'm gonna go find this fucker. I need to see this for myself. I need to see it, and I need to get a good picture that's not blurry, because
that's not blurry.
I can't fucking stand all the blurry pictures. So
I'm not gonna say it, but
yeah, exactly. I'd be like, yo, Mr. Bigfoot.
Yo, pose.
Hey, banana.
Daryl. Smile.
Daryl, smile, Daryl.
Beef jerky.
I got some jerky. Yeah. I got barbecue.
All right. Moving on. Hey, Ron, what's up, buddy? How do you think flashbulb memory theory affects the recounting of memories of paranormal encounters like Bigfoot sightings? Could this account for the changes in the details from memory rehearsal? Ooh, this is good. That's a good question.
Well, I'm sure with some there are. Then again, with some there aren't. Like any traumatic experience, time slows down. So I mean,
perception of time slows down.
Perception of time slows down. Facts actually become more aware. You become aware of things. Like for example, one of the most traumatic things that ever happened in my lifetime was 9/11. And I think everybody can remember where they were.
Yep, I do.
People said the same thing with the John F. K. assassination, with the announcement of Pearl Harbor.
Space shuttle.
Yeah. And I remember that day.
Yep, we were watching it on TV.
I wasn't. I was taking a midterm exam. I was in my junior year of high school. I took a midterm exam, and then I had to go to my aunt's house to shovel her driveway out because it had snowed the day before. And I get there, and she's in the living room crying, and I'm like, what's the matter? And she goes, the space shuttle just blew up. I'm like, what? So you remember. So when a traumatic effect happens for a lot of people, the reason why they have so much detail is because of that. It gets ingrained right here. Like me, the night I went out, when I saw my first one, even when I saw the second one, the only reason why I recounted better because the lighting was better. It was pitch black out the night I had my first sighting, but I remember that one so well because it's ingrained right here. I remember going out. I remember thinking. I remember who was in the camp. I remember that was the last day I went out with John Weitzel. He ended up passing away 5 months later. You remember all these little details. And, I remember I had a girlfriend with me there. I remember us having a little spat before the whole thing because I had made a joke she didn't like. So you remember all these things. So it's not necessarily a flashbulb memory for everybody. It could be for some. And that's always something as an investigator you have to be aware of. So obviously, yeah, that's very true. It could happen. But to say, again, to group everybody into that thing is not right. And to exclude everybody from that wouldn't be right either. So.
Right. I mean, I don't know if I agree completely because I think these are different scenarios. Although both traumatic, it's I mean, I see these major events like Space Shuttle, 9/11. These are events that happen that we're at a particular place, everything stops, and it's not just a few seconds.
But Kenny, you got to understand too, and I haven't really mentioned this, but I've talked to people who have been through, especially as an investigator on the private side, I've talked to people who have been through shit. And they remember every little detail to the point where that's traumatic. And it's a similar trauma, believe it or not. If it's something is not in your belief system and there it is, and it's long lasting or it's more than a few minutes, you know, it's going to leave an effect on them, and they're going to have that minute detail about it.
I can't argue with those, because those are the various anecdotes. I can't argue. I mean, I can relate.
I mean, I'm just giving you my experience with people. I've had a lot of experience with people. So to say, you know, this is account for changes in details. Well, you know, and let me make a comment.
I just want to be clear. I haven't finished my point yet.
Details will change sometimes over time.
Right.
And that's very common. Spatial distance, time, weight. I remember I had my first sighting. I ever had something in a monocular. I saw something shadowy pull up. And I remember the first time I said it, yeah, the reeds were about 4 feet tall. And then I realized, no, they weren't. They were about 6 feet tall, because I was actually higher up than lower. And they were about 4 feet from when I was looking, but they were actually, and I remember I got down there, no, they were actually about 6 feet tall. So whatever peaked up was well over 6 foot. But that happens. You do get, and that's common. That's why you can have a guy run out of a bank, robbing a bank, and 5 different people will give you 5 different heights, 5 different weights. But the one thing they're always consistent with, number one, it was a male or female. Number 2, it was a human being. Number 3, they were headed in one general direction at first. You know, so that's generally the 3. So when I look at stories, I always make sure the A, B, and C stories make sense. Like the Bob Hieronymus saying he was the Bigfoot in the suit. When he first came out, he said he never showed anybody but his mom and I think his nephew or cousin or whatever it was, whoever was at his house that day. But then months later, he came out with the story, well, I took it down to the bar and I showed everybody in the bar. That is a fabrication. If he had said, yeah, I was out there for a half hour, you know, and I probably stood about 6'3" in it. And then, you know, say a year later, he says, I stood about 6'4" in it. 6'5" in it, that wouldn't have made much of a difference, because you can have those spatial, you know, he may have rethought it. Well, maybe I was a little taller. Maybe his recollection's a little different. Maybe, you know, he spent 30 minutes there and now he's saying 45. Okay, I get that. That can change over the years. But the general flow of the story should always be A, B, C. When that changes, it goes to A, C, B, that's indicative of somebody's making something up.
I understand that, but I want to get back to the original point that I was trying to make here, is that with flashbulb memories, and as it associates with major events such as 9/11 and the space shuttle, JFK, these are events that happen, and it's not just a few seconds that we're exposed to.
Sure.
We are exposed to hours and days and weeks of footage and stories and information. And that's much different than an experience one has for a few seconds. And I'm just going to base it off a few seconds or even a minute or so.
Well, yeah, anything that happens for a few seconds is bound to be.
You're going to have gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're not prepared.
No argument there. No argument there.
That's the point I'm trying to make. When we're recounting flashbulb memories, we're talking about something that, like 9/11. Yes, I remember being at a dealership working, and one of the mechanics came out and said, hey, shit's going on in New York. And we all went into the break room, watched the TV, and we watched for like an hour. And then we came home. We watched the news. I have newspapers. I still have newspapers from that day. The next couple of weeks.
No, I don't just, you know, has there been times where somebody sees a moose cross the road and they think it's a Bigfoot? I'm sure it's happened. Has somebody seen a bear run across the road? I'm sure it's happened. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I tend to look at, you know, some of the sightings, like I, you know, you got to investigate them. You know, okay, it happened. Let's take a look. Let's bounce around. You have to investigate them. Then you can come up with your own conclusions. What, you know, what they saw. Yeah. Has there been misidentifications? Absolutely. You know,
it happens all the time. And it's not deliberate, but it happens.
Same thing with UFOs. Same thing with ghost seeing apparitions. They may have seen a car light go by.
If there's other people there with you, and if you don't separate them right away, you have people collaborating on their stories, and the stories start merging together.
Yeah, you get the group think. Yeah,
yes.
Group think. Yep.
All right, let's go on. Let's take one more question, and then we'll close it out.
I gotta make a. Okay.
You have to make the decision, Donna.
All right. So, Bob, I'm sorry about your Wookiee question. It's not gonna go.
Unless they're really quick and we can get through them. Has anyone? Let's do some shotguns. Let's do shotgun questioning and just get through some of these.
All right. Well, quick. Not my bad.
Has anyone tried a touch DNA test in a depression area of a Bigfoot track?
I don't know.
Okay. Next question.
Moving on.
There we go. We're going to shotgun these. Without a specimen to draw from, how can you say what you saw was a Bigfoot?
What I saw has been described as a Bigfoot by hundreds and hundreds of witnesses before me. So that's what I'm calling what I saw, because that is the most common explanation.
Okay. Next. Cool. We're getting through these. Yeah. How long have people been hunting Bigfoot?
Hunting, I don't know. But Jonas Galusha, who became governor of Vermont, actually ran on a ticket. He was going to catch the wild man, which was basically what they called the Bigfoot back in the 1870s. So a long time.
Okay.
Okay. Long time
Next.
is good.
Here we go. When are we just going to admit that Bigfoot is a Wookiee? We're being visited by Wookiees.
I got it in, Bob.
Oh, I would love to go to Kashyyyk and just visit the whole.
He's pulling out the Chewbacca defense.
There you go. I got it.
Chewbacca came from a planet named Kashyyyk, but he chooses to live on a planet full of Ewoks called Endor. Does that make sense?
Endor, Ewoks are just little Bigfoots.
Hey,
as far as I'm concerned.
They're goddamn little Meshuggahs.
All right. Keep going. Thanks, Bob.
Here we go.
Nice question. Since we do not have a specimen, how would you even know it's a Bigfoot if we found one? People will have so many different ideas of what it's supposed to be. I mean, if it looks like Chewbacca.
If it has a big fucking foot, it's a Bigfoot.
Well,
boom, John.
I would say, how did they know it was a panda when they found a panda? Like I said earlier, that when they find one, if they find one, they won't call it a Bigfoot. They'll call it some scientific name.
Right.
And that's what we commonly used to be referred to as a Bigfoot. Remember, the mountain gorilla was referred to as like the wild ape man.
I definitely think it'll get a scientific name because that's just the way the process goes, but it will still be called Bigfoot.
It'll be Bigfoot to me always.
I'll always call it Bigfoot.
Well, yeah, our generation will, but like kids that are babies now are not going to say, "Oh, it's a Bigfoot." They're going to call it by whatever panda name it is.
Doing their own shit.
Kenny, you're sounding like my father now.
I know, he's an old man now.
How old are you, bitch?
I'm my own father now.
Kennedy. Me too.
Yeah,
me too,
so
John Kennedy.
Man. So am I. All right. What do you think the government isn't telling us? Why they rip us off?
About what, Bob?
Taxes. Stuff.
Vladimir Putin only buys condoms on Thursday. Anyway.
Wow. All right. Next question. Last question. Last question. Is an ebook of your
I do believe I have one on ebook. I have 3 books out. The one on 50 large is not on ebook and can't be because the PDF manuscript is nowhere to be found anymore. It got lost on a hard drive, so I can't convert that over. But it is available on Amazon, and it's pretty. Oh, look at that!
That's cool.
What the hell is that?
It's green, so it's like a green screen.
Is your background a green screen?
I do have a green. Yeah, I do have a green. I can put a green screen on my show. I put a green screen up behind me.
Okay.
So actually, hang on a second.
The book part green? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
That's why I did that.
I think it's.
That's better.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Green. That's funny.
That's one of my books. I have 2 other ones. And this one actually says, a believer looking at the Sasquatch mystery through the eyes of a skeptic, and I kind of tear apart every little thing a lot.
I have What Would Sasquatch Do? I have that one. Yes, I have that book. I need the other 2. Like 50 large, I really want to read because that looks. I love hoaxes.
50 large.
And 50 large. Now that I know what it means,
now, it's kind of a cool book because I actually navigate. I start with my investigation of the Biscardi group. So it starts with that, and then it builds into the hoax and the police report. One thing I didn't get into was that I actually foiled the entire 89-page police report, where I got a lot of the real facts going on.
Okay.
That was said, and what was done. And it's amazing. The person who talked with them the most was the person who said the least on the police report.
Found a $30 Bigfoot handprint in the telecast that he should put in the museum. Oh, Jesus, John.
2017. Nutella-case.
Oh, yes. I heard about that.
Oh, thing?
Oh, yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me? What is this? We have to look this up.
North American Bigfoot Center.
It's American. Let me see. What is? Oh,
Can
shit.
You copy
I can't copy it off of here.
I can't either.
No,
hold on. Wait a minute.
I'll have to look at it.
No, I can't either. Oh, crap.
Yeah, I'll look at it after the show. In Nutella? Really? In a Nutella cast. So this is a Bigfoot casting in Nutella?
That's what
I
says.
guess it was.
I didn't.
From what I understand, it got set out as.
Okay.
I didn't know he was selling copies of the cast of it, but there was a Nutella jar that got set out as bait, and something had put its hand in it. I suppose.
Don't be cheap. Put it in the box.
Shut up, John. Bitch. All right, man. We're at the end of the show.
People want to see the puppy.
Oh, I don't know. Do you have the puppy?
I can bring her up during your ending.
Stop. This is not a puppy show, people.
Yes, it is. She's getting so big.
Jesus. All right. So while Donna is going down to get the puppy,
I will get her. She's been sleeping. She's been a good girl.
You're gonna be up all night now.
What do you?
Yeah, right. It's
Steve,
another.
What do you
10
have
minutes.
coming up? What's in your future?
Oh, let's see. What do I got in the future? Well, we're getting the podcast off and running again on May 1st after a little vacation.
What's the podcast?
SquachDTV, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. on YouTube. You can go to SquachDTV.com. It goes right to the YouTube page.
Okay.
I got to get on SquachDetective.com and update that because I really have taken a 2-month vacation. When I do,
Sometimes you gotta.
Yeah. I do it to keep my sanity because, it does get a little crazy out there sometimes.
I mean, you usually do, like, I don't know about you, but I have my regular job that pays for everything else.
Right.
And then you have this other job that's probably more work than your regular job.
And less pay.
Yeah, less pay.
Or no pay.
Yeah. And you're constantly doing it. And sometimes it's just like, you know what? This weekend, fuck everyone. I don't care about anything.
But next month, I believe May 15th, I'll be speaking at the Sasquatch Triangle Conference in Coshocton, Ohio.
Okay.
With Don Keating, Todd Neese, Eric Altman.
Oh, Eric. We love Eric.
And I know there's a couple people I'm missing. The Ohio Night Stalkers. So that we got events building up. We got the Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Conference coming up again this year. There's going to be Squatchtober, which is also going to be in October in Massachusetts, with hosted by SquachDetective.com. And there's other events coming down the pipe, I'm sure.
Very cool. I know that in 2023, I know you'll be in Pennsylvania for the Bigfoot camping weekend.
Absolutely. I've already been asked to speak, and I didn't want to say nothing about that but I don't know how public that is, but since you mentioned it, yep.
He didn't tell me not to say anything, so because I also got asked to speak.
Awesome.
It's the Pennsylvania Bigfoot camping weekend run by Eric Altman. And it was fun. Yeah, he reached out to me. He's like, hey, do you want to do this and this? We'd like to have you. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I loved it. I had fun. I really had fun at that event. And then like a half hour or not even like 10 minutes later, he's like, oh, good. You and Steve can team up and do like a talk or something because he just confirmed he's coming up. It's like, oh, that's cool. And that's cool. What got me thinking about like, oh, you know what? I got to reach out to him and see how he's doing and get you on. So yeah, we'll be there together, and That's fun. That's a fun
Yeah,
event.
yeah, it's a great time.
Yeah,
great time. It'd be good. You know, it's a shame we won't be seeing Dave Dragusin there. That was such a loss.
Yeah,
that was really bad.
All right. So with that, I'm gonna put Donna on because she has to show everyone the puppy.
She's yawning. She's
there.
So
We go.
sleepy.
Let me take off.
Oh my goodness!
Isn't she the cutest?
There
thing?
we go.
She's
there
so
you go.
tired.
That's Rummy.
It's
Rummy is Rummy. How old is Rummy?
She's almost 4 months. She's
4 months.
like
Yeah.
She's like 10 days shy or 9 days shy of 4 months.
Yeah. She looks tired.
She's beat. I just woke her up. Just to bring her up to show you guys.
Yeah, she was sleeping. So all you people out there that bitched at us to put Rummy on, you woke her up.
Look,
it's all your fault now. All your fault.
Rummy's
She'll
like,
go back
why?
Why?
She'll go back to sleep.
All right, go back to sleep. I'm going to take you off here.
Hi.
There you go. All right. So with us, I'm gonna you can stick around for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my announcements. I'm just gonna put them up on the screen here. So coming up tomorrow, Saturday nights, I do another show called Three Tortured Souls with Dave Schumacher and Tim Vickers. Tomorrow night's topic, we're gonna tackle the Bermuda Triangle. So that's always been really cool. I like that story. I grew up with that story, like in search of and stuff. So that should be fun. April 30th, if you're interested, there's the Susan Gerbic will be speaking at the National Capital Area Skeptics Society, which is a group that meets it's right outside of DC. So if you're in the area, DC area or East Coast, you want to go down, she'll be speaking there. She's going to get an award. And then she's going to be giving a talk probably about Wikipedia editors, because that's what she does. So if you're available, I'm going to be down there. Donna's going to come down. We're going to have fun. We're going to hang out. July 16th and 17th, I'll be speaking for the Skeptical Virtual Conference. It's a California-based science conference, and I'm probably the only scientist or probably the only non-scientist speaking at the science conference. But I'm going to be talking about my transition from ghost hunter to skeptical investigator, and giving you reason why I still stay within the paranormal community and set up at paranormal conferences, because I think it's worthwhile. July 23rd, I'll be at the Para-Unity Conference in Woodbridge, New Jersey. I'll be set up with my Skeptical Help booth, the physical booth that looks like Lucy's stand, which kind of looks like this, except with me instead of Lucy. Donna will be there with Lucky Tiki Creations. You can come out and hang out with us. August 19th and 21st, I'll be at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash and doing the same thing. Donna will be out there. That is probably the most awesome weekend, like party-wise, honestly, because you have the conference during the day, and then every night is just I don't want to say a drunk fest, but it's a drunk fest out on the promenade out back. And then, of course, October 20th to 23rd is SciCon in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll be out there. That's the big science conference. I'll be actually speaking, and I don't know if I said this last time. I usually do workshops, which are on Thursday nights, and it's smaller room. But this time, I'm going to be speaking on the big stage with like 3 to 4 to 5,000 people. I get a half hour to talk to everyone about bridging the gap between some believers and skeptics. You know, how we're not supposed to be working against each other, but trying to work together. So
I agree.
That should be fun. Big stage, lots of people. I have no freaking clue what I'm going to say. So we'll see. But that's my announcements. I hope everyone had fun. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Thank you, Steve, for telling your story, relating your information, and answering so many questions.
I appreciate you coming on. It was awesome.
That was cool. And hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
But stick around. I'm going to do our closing video. And let me see. Let me get it up. It's queued up here.
See you later, guys.
See you later, guys. Everyone.
Thanks for the great questions, too.
Yeah. Happy Easter.
Awesome.
If you celebrate.
If you celebrate, yeah. Happy Easter. If you don't,
Passover. Happy Passover.
You're kind of with me and just chilling. It's a 3-day weekend. That's all I care about. So, but have a good weekend. And remember, never stop learning. And I'll see you next week.